If it was so easy, why didn't
It's
Obama
unprecedented. Why is Obama the only president not to
He didn't.
achieve 3%?
He didn't.
If
He
it's
didn't.
unprecedented, why did 44 presidents before Trump achieve
Wait,
it?
hold on. Let me ask you a question. What's your name?
What?
Because you seem really excited, Sparky.
My name
What's
is
your name?
Libtard.
What's your name?
My name is Libtard.
Libtard.
Yeah.
That's good.
And not treat them according to a group identity when you're explicitly qualifying them according to a nationality. So you think that discriminating people according to race or ethnicity or your virtues or your values or specific things, it's entirely wrong, but you think it's correct to discriminate them according to a specific nationality, a visa, a green card, a paper, and to exclude half of the world for a better opportunity in raising their standards by living and emigrating somewhere else abroad.
Can I ask you a question? Do you believe in national identity?
No, I oppose. Do I believe that it exists? Yes. Do I oppose it? Yes.
So do you believe there's a difference between a set of laws in the United States or UK and Saudi Arabia?
Yes.
So there is a difference between national identity. Therefore, some countries have better ideas and some countries have worse ideas?
Is the culture monolithic or no? It is not. So those people from Saudi Arabia, when they migrate here to the UK,
Right.
to the
Okay,
UK,
but they believe
get
gays.
better
Sorry to
cultures.
cut you off, but they believe gays should be thrown off of buildings, right?
No.
So, what do you
No,
mean no?
yes.
Yes, they do.
So, and that is wrong.
Yes, they do.
Incorrect.
So,
Yes,
so
they do. They execute homosexuals in Saudi Arabia.
I do agree, and you're correct in your analysis. Why is it wrong to immigrate a group of people from Saudi Arabia into the United
Because you'll have
Kingdom?
150 million people at the doorstep of the United States yesterday. Because beacons of freedom must, the reason is, look, you must have sensible immigration policy, or else in the
You
United
think that the government sucks for everything, but you believe that the central planified government immigration is
hold
good.
on.
It's
Hold
bad
on,
for
hold on.
commerce,
First off,
it's bad
slow
for
down.
everything,
Slow
but
down.
it's good
We're
for
not in a rush
immigration.
tonight. Slow down. Take a deep breath, okay? I'm going to answer what you're saying, okay? The idea that you just want to have open borders where you just acknowledge the first thing that I said, which is that, yes, in Saudi Arabia, they believe women should be covered from head to toe. They just got the right to drive. They have to have, they can't vote, right? You have to have a male signature to enter in and out in certain places. You can't leave the country without a guardian, right?
The description of a problem
That's
is not
it's a yes or no
solution.
question.
Yes.
It's a yes or no question. We're getting there.
Describing a problem does not justify
I haven't. I
solution.
didn't give you a solution, so I don't know why you're cutting me off. We're having a discussion. We're not in a race. A race. Take a deep breath. So you agree with that? All that's a fact of what's going on in Saudi
That is a
Arabia.
fact. That is
At the
correct.
same time, you believe that in our country, which we believe in none of that in Western civilization, I would not be able to wear this. I actually would not be able to speak here tonight if I was in Saudi Arabia. Okay, but you are now saying that in America we should open our borders and let people that have that belief, have that archaic belief, flood into our country, which is we have a democracy, so they would be able to then vote laws, right, into place. You think that we should allow that, and we should ignore the fact that everything that they want is against our civilization and what we believe.
Because you're assuming that people have a monolithic Unitarian view, and that person has only suffered to statism and Islamism and negative communities and lack of freedom.
You're saying
of
a bunch of
independence
words,
are
but
not
you're
gonna
not.
have the same reasoning
Can I ask
in
a
another
question of
one.
you? How many refugees do you have in your apartment?
How many immigrants do you have working in your company?
We're against
Well,
it.
actually,
We're against it. We
have
believe
lots
in
of immigrants,
borders.
But you're a hypocrite. Why don't you
We're
bring a lot of
ideologically
refugees?
consistent.
You want to bring in the world's problems, bring them into Western society. Bring in
that's not
Yemenis
what's wrong.
refugees. Here's the problem. You want open borders until it might affect your lifestyle.
No, I want open borders because it capitalistically, for the economy, for the free markets, it creates a new class of group of people whose families are going to be better in the second generation. Herself, she changed her personality from being a labor voter into a conservative.
I was never in a Labor Party. I'm me?
Not you, the other lady.
Oh, okay.
The lady that is next to you. People can change their behavior, their attitudes, their skills, their values through the presentation of new and better ideas. Why not give them, everyone, a chance?
Why don't
from
they do it
Saudi
in their own
Arabia?
country?
Because it's impossible to be the opposition in Saudi Arabia. They kill you, they murder you, they attack you. So they're
there's
living in Honduras.
So
in
national
Venezuela.
identity matters. Ideas matter.
Ideas
Therefore,
matter, not nationality.
national identity is embedded in ideas. All men are created equal. All cultures are not created equal.
The culture is not it's not an intrinsic value of herself. Individuals can have multiple cultures, and those cultures would be better reflected within a free market of ideas, of people,
We have
and
that
of everything.
here now. If you have limitless immigration, you would have 100 million people in the UK and the US, which first of all would be a drain on natural resources, public utilities,
What you're proposing is
That's
so
welfare state.
is
Eliminate
So
it.
radical.
What you're proposing is
So radical.
almost more unrealistic than the utopianism of Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah,
I just
it's
have to
really
say.
radical.
I'm a very capitalistic former CEO of 3 companies, blockchain and Bitcoin entrepreneur.
You
That's
got a lot
not
of
bad.
money,
Lot of
man. You should
lectures.
bring in 10 Yemenis refugees from the Yemeni civil war.
I-
you got money, do
No,
it.
It's not about funding some other. You're confusing welfare state against other people. You say
No,
how
the
many
point
people
is
do you
you're a
have in your house?
hypocrite,
That's
is the
illogical.
point.
That's absolutely illogical. Charlie, how can you say those kind of
because
things?
I live the
I
very
don't want
ideas
them
that I
there.
espouse. You don't.
Of course I do. I'm
Yeah,
a
how many
capitalist.
refugees have you brought to the UK?
How many immigrants are you having in your
I
own
want
company?
controlled immigration. You
I
don't.
don't want
I live
controlled
everything I
immigration.
believe. You don't.
Centralize. You think that government sucks
Next
for
question
everything,
now.
but not for
I
immigration.
am not an anarchist. You
Neither
are
am
an
I.
unrealistic anarchist utopian.
I am a capitalist.
It's
I give lectures in
That
the
lives
Institute
in
of
a
Economic
unrealistic
Affairs.
If you have no
I'm a
control,
Hayekian.
if you have no control over your borders and you can't control the flow of people that are coming into to a single country, you've got to
great.
think about how big the UK actually is. We're already struggling to house people as it is.
The director of the
Immigration
Institute
has
of Economic
contributed
Affairs thinks
to
that you can bring
largely
400
to
million
our growth
people
in
into
How's that
UK.
working in Germany, by the way? Is it working great in Germany?
I think it will.
You
Yes.
think it's working well in
Yeah.
Germany?
I think that immigrating 1 million Syrian
How's
refugees
it
into
working?
Germany is
How about
possible.
Sweden?
Germany is one of the rape capitals of Europe. You've seen it in Sweden as well. When you don't control your borders, bad things happen. It doesn't work in Germany. People want Merkel to go. People didn't like Merkel. They don't want her.
Advocating for the majority is not a solution. Not because 99% of the people
That's
want
not
something or
democracy.
against it. It's not. It does not make it correct.
Can you give me an example where limitless immigration has worked? No, of course not.
Well, Liberland.
You live in utopianism.
I'm trying.
Next.
You are an anti-capitalist.
Next.
Thank you for being wrong tonight. We appreciate it.
No need to shout at him. He was just saying his piece.
Disagreements? That's fine. Disagreement? Oh, then sorry. Disagreement?
Hi there, it's a pleasure to get the chance to ask you a question. So Turning Point USA is very, very pro-Trump. And I just wanted to ask you a question with regards to Trump and his popularity. So a lot of what made Trump popular is how he's appealed to certain demographics who feel that their jobs are being taken away. So Trump's very anti-globalist in that way. My criticism of that would be, and this is based off me trying to understand more free market capitalism myself in the past 6 months. While Trump might be doing very, very well for the economy at the moment, are his policy decisions in terms of protecting jobs and having trade wars with other countries, is that not ultimately going to have a negative effect on Americans further down the lines, in such that, so the argument that Thomas Sowell might make is that with greater globalism, you have the opportunity with lower tariffs to make sure that the average cost of basic food in shops is lower for the average American, or if there are tariffs on, say, steel, to protect the steel worker jobs of Americans in the United States, is that not going to have a massive impact on, say, the car industry when they're having to pay substantially more for the tariffs? So how do you feel about Trump's policy with regards to what knock-on effect it will have on Americans in future years?
So one of the biggest misnomers is the idea that Trump has started trade wars. If you actually look at the deals he signed, he's opened and liberated more markets for U.S. goods to be sold. In order for there to be free trade, you just can't be able to buy what you want to buy. You should also be able to sell your products as well. And one of the biggest ripoffs is what the EU has done to U.S. ability to sell our goods and services into the European Union. You ever notice when you go through Germany or go through France, there's very little American cars? Because that's the tariffs that the EU puts on Ford, Chrysler, Cadillac, so on and so forth. Trump has liberated Southeast Asian markets to buy billions of dollars of coal, billions of dollars of Boeing 737 jets. And the trade deals that he's done has largely been in a negotiation tactic to allow U.S. goods to be sold around the world. This is also why the U.S. is now the largest net exporter of natural gas in the world, and actually exports more oil than we import. So with China, it's a lot more complex. I actually support economic warfare against China. I think China is the great enemy of freedom around the world, and that Russia is a sidebar compared to what China's doing against free people all across the world. We must take them very, very seriously. Anything you want to expound on that? Okay. George, find someone who disagrees with us.
Who disagrees?
We got one here.
It's more of a criticism than a disagreement.
Great.
You tricked us.
So, from following you, most of you for a while on social media, and I kind of agree with much of what you have to say. My criticism is, if I was to be very unkind, I would say, at the moment, what do you amount to more than basically a sort of protest movement, if I was being very unkind? Because the direction of travel seems to be that the sort of left has overtaken the institutions, so education, politics, and the media. It's quite a long, hard road back from there. So I kind of enjoyed the Brexit vote, and I was quite pro-Trump, but I'm not sure if the overall direction of travel is in the correct direction. So how do we change the direction of travel, and what are you guys doing to do that?
What do you mean by direction of travel?
Well, it's just the left seems to have comprehensively taken over the institutions of education, politics, and the media, and now this identity politics dogma is affecting private corporations. It's a long way back from there. What are you doing? What do we do?
What we're doing right here. I mean, the direction of travel depends on what we all do. There is a silent majority out there who don't actually agree with this identity politics. They don't agree with far-left socialism. They don't agree with some of the madness that they're seeing on their TV screens. But if they speak out, they're often demonized or, targeted. And there's this awful culture at the moment that if you do speak out for these ideas, which are actually quite mainstream ideas, I mean, we're the majority of public opinion that's being treated like a minority and a sideshow on TV. We just need to be braver, because if everyone who really agreed with us told their colleagues tomorrow, everyone would be like, oh, wow, yeah, half the country's conservative, or more than half the country's conservative. But nobody wants to say anything, because there is this culture of demonization if you come out with these beliefs. So if we start here by doing this, and you all go away, and you have great debates with your friends on the left and your family, and you have the courage to say that you do believe in these things, that is the start. That is how this happens. And I really, as well, if there's anyone in the audience who disagrees, I just would like you to speak with us and to hear about what we believe, because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there about what being a conservative is, what believing in free markets is. Actually, because on our side, we're individualists, so I'm sure there's a lot that we'll disagree on here. There's not a lot of groupthink. So it can be confusing for people on the left to, they find one conservative that says this, and that represents all conservatives. We're individuals, right? But on the whole, we err on the side of individual freedom. And that is something that is worth defending, and we need to all go out and do that tomorrow.
So I think, I 100% agree. But to answer your question, which is like, yeah, this feels good, but where is this amounting to, I guess, is what your question is, right? I take exception to saying we're a protest movement. We actually hate protesters. I don't do protesting. I want to engage in dialogue. And for me, obviously, I've been hyper-focused on the black community. No, I know you weren't like attacking me. I want to differentiate, because it is important to say that we don't protest, right? We don't show up at Brett Kavanaugh's hearing wearing pussy hats and screaming and crying. So for me, I've been hyper-focused in the black community, and you can say, okay, what are you seeing? I see the black community as almost an unused currency in America. We are an unused currency in America. We haven't been active in the American dream whatsoever, and to me, imagine what America would be if every single minority no longer allowed the color of their skin to dictate their decisions. If instead of complaining, like Trump, what are we at? 4 million people have dropped off of food stamps. One of my biggest things that I fight for is repairing the nuclear family. Mom, dad, daughter, son having dinner at the table, which is something that the left actively works to destroy when they try to turn women into men and men into women, because that's exactly what they are doing right now, make no mistake, right? This is what radicalized feminism wants to do, is to destroy the family, right? Everything should get better if you can repair those sorts of things. Everything should get better if you can repair the family, if you can reset goals, if you can get people inspired, if you can tell people that maybe as opposed to protesting on a Monday morning at 8 a.m. about how you don't have a job, you should apply to some jobs, right? Because this is what we see in the States. So we're talking about a cultural change, and yes, that does mean that we have to create our own media, and you see that we're doing that, and I think for the first time we're starting to see conservatives come to the forefront of culture, which was a very necessary change, because at least in our country, almost 90% of everything that's on TV is leftist. There is nothing.
Here too. Yeah.
Right, here as well. There is nothing for conservatives. So what we're talking about with better ideas is creating what will in turn be a better economy and a better society with strong men, strong women, and and strong families, and some sanity in the dialogue of debate of political discussion, which disallows the government to come in and be overreaching and remove our freedoms. So I think what you'll see in the next 10 years, shorter than that, my plan is for 2020. I want to see Black Americans break free by 2020. Is a lot of really big changes that are going to save Western civilization.
Okay. Who's got the mic? You got a disagreement? Yes? No?
He's got a great beard.
I'm the chairman of the local Conservative Party right here. So welcome to my part of the world. I don't know if you know that Leighton and Wanstead, which is my constituency, was Winston Churchill's constituency. I'd also like to point out that if you see so many areas here are still empty, this area took the highest bombing of any part of Britain in the Second World War. This was destroyed here, and we rebuilt our country 60, 70 years ago. When I was a student, I mean, this is a long time ago, we had Margaret Thatcher as our leader.
Yeah.
The problem is right now, the leadership of the Conservative Party are not conservative.
Yes.
Here, here.
They are quite happy to go along with the censorship. They're quite happy to put all these rules. Really, they're just Labour Party light. So the question is, what can you do about it? And let me tell you what we need. I've got a loud enough voice, so I don't. In my time, we didn't have microphones. We had to shout above the left. Yeah. What we need locally is young people to get out and canvass, because Labour have 10 times as many people on the street canvassing for elections as we do. We just don't have the numbers. If we had the numbers, we could do so much better. So what I'm advising people to do, and I don't know how many of you are in East London or wherever you are, but join up in your local parties and change them, because numbers make a difference. Membership of the Conservative Party is tiny, and it needs your support, and it needs your numbers, and you can change things.
Well said, that man.
That's for the BBC. Don't pay a license. Disconnect your TV.
Yes.
And as one last point, I've also got my American fiance too. Here, right
Do you find a disagreement? Disagree? You disagree over here on the far right.
We're not far right, that's the point, yeah. Exactly.
Well, it's their far left. So.
Hi there. So we're a couple of students from the London School of Economics, and I just wanted to ask, so you mentioned, it's actually one of the most right-wing universities here in the UK, right? You mentioned that Trump managed to achieve a GDP growth rate of 3%, which I'll admit is quite impressive, but technically that's just 2.6%, and it was higher in 2015 under Obama with 2.9%. Now, and to be entirely precise, that's not even remotely as high as, for example, Cyprus with 3.9, Ireland with 7.8, or Romania, who just finished like a whole season of a social democrat government with 6.9% GDP growth. So I mean, didn't Trump really just bring America to somewhere around the middle of the Western nations?
So first of all, I don't know, the mics are screwed up. First of all, it's a 3% GDP rate for this last year. It was 3.6% in the third quarter. So look, India's GDP rate is 14% every year because they're a developing country. When you have a $22 trillion GDP and you're still growing at 3%, again, I'm saying India, I'm using an example, okay? India's GDP rate year over year is 14%, 15%. When you have a $22 trillion economy and you're still growing at 3%, it's an unbelievable achievement. Unbelievable achievement. And so I'm not really sure where your disagreement is, but when you have the world's largest economy, you have 330 million people, and you're still growing at a 3% clip, it's incredible. Here's a fact. Obama's the first president in U.S. history to never achieve 3% GDP growth in a single year. Fact. Trump did it in his first year. So I'm not sure the numbers they're learning at the London School of Economics, but I'm happy to talk about them.
So you have other really big economies, for example, Ireland, that also have a much smaller population, but actually do have a higher... Wait. Before you interrupt.
The GDP of Ireland's like 180 billion.
Yes. But they also have a much smaller population, so their GDP per capita is actually higher than that of the United States, and they're still growing at 7.8%. I mean, how are you explaining something like that?
Because Ireland has the lowest corporate tax rate in the world. In a lot of ways, they've had market-based policies that we'll embrace and we appreciate. Okay. And the fact that Donald Trump actually lowered the U.S. corporate tax rate was to stop U.S. companies from domiciling in Ireland, the very country that you're using an example to try to juxtapose against the policies that we embrace.
Take Romania. Social Democrat government, the last 4 years, 6.9% GDP growth.
Look again, I'm happy to plead ignorance on an Eastern European country as Romania, but I'm guessing that their GDP per capita is a little bit less than that of the United States. There's, in some parts of their country, again, we do have some Romanians that can speak stronger about it, but I will say their immigration policy is actually something I like a lot. So I don't know if you're going to want to defend it. I don't know what your policies on immigration. I don't want to assume that, but they are more closed borders than most European countries.
Am I allowed to go into immigration, or is the mic going to...
I'm just saying, I'm not sure the point you're trying to make, but when the U.S. economy is $22 trillion and still growing at a 3% clip, it's unprecedented. It's unbelievable. And if it was so easy, why didn't Obama?
It's unprecedented. Why is Obama the only president not to achieve 3%?
He didn't.
If it's unprecedented, why did 44 presidents before Trump achieve it?
Wait, hold on. Let me ask you a question. What's your name?
What?
Because you seem really excited, Sparky.
My name
What's
is
your name?
Libtard.
What's your name?
My name is Libtard.
Libtard.
Yep.
That's good. That'll trend well on Reddit. So I'm going to own you right now. So can you ask me how many years Obama achieved 3% economic growth since you're such a master at the London School of Economics? It rhymes with euro. Zero.
Shit, dude. No, the question was if it's unprecedented, why is Obama the only president not to achieve it?
It's unprecedented in the modern era. In the last 8 years. You know what's unprecedented?
The modern era.
In the last 8 years. You know what's unprecedented? The lowest ever black unemployment rate, the lowest ever Asian unemployment rate, the lowest ever Hispanic unemployment, the lowest ever disabled unemployment
All
rate.
trends
Paired with 3% GDP
Obama.
growth, paired with 6 million jobs since his inauguration, 500,000 in the manufacturing sector, exporting more oil than we're importing, finally being energy independent, revitalizing the coal industry, the natural gas capital of the world. That's a little unprecedented. Paired with 3% GDP growth. Oh, by the way, the highest ever stock market high, 99 stock market highs, more GDP growth than ever before. Where Obama, we were in misery and mediocrity. Under Trump, we're in a peace and prosperity. You should learn at the London School of Economics. Wouldn't expect it with the Marxists that are teaching every single day.
like fucking Hayek quoted just now.
Don't you love how leftists start swearing and getting angry? Did you say effing Hayek? Is that what you said?
Oh, sorry. Is that not the?
No, his name was Friedrich Hayek, not
that
effing Hayek.
Wrecked. Is that not the civility that you guys that you guys like? Is that what was that too uncivil for you?
But you just started swearing. Yeah. So can you try to disprove me, or are you going to keep on embarrassing yourself?
The point is that the economic crash happened under George W. Bush.
So you want to talk about the economic crisis? Fine. It was caused by the Federal Reserve lowering interest rates after 9/11. It was caused by something called the Community Reinvestment Act of 1988, which was government policy that incentivized government bureaus to give mortgages to people that should never have been involved. I'm sure you know all about credit default swaps because you're at the London East School of Economics.
I also know that act of legislation was passed under Ronald Reagan.
Let me finish. I let you finish, Sparky. Okay? Alan Greenspan said Fannie and Freddie were the sole contributor. You know what Fannie and Freddie Mac is? Fannie and Freddie Mac are quasi-government institutions that were pushing government-backed mortgages and loans, and they were wrapping them in AAA credit ratings. By the way, your credit agencies were in bed with our credit agencies to create one of the biggest government-created artificial bubbles in American history behind garbage. Wall Street got drunk. Washington, D.C. provided the liquor. George W. Bush was anything but a capitalist. We expanded Medicare Part D. He borrowed trillions of dollars. Every single government program grew underneath him. If you're going to try to say George W. Bush was a great capitalist, disagree with you completely. Here's the final point. As government grows, liberty contracts. The 2008 financial crisis was caused by the very government that we detest and that your school seemingly defends.
You know, I could go on and say that all the legislation that you just talked about was proposed under Reagan, but you know that doesn't matter, I guess, because facts and logic over anything.
It doesn't matter because if it's a bad idea, I don't care who proposes it because we stand on principle, not on party. Thank you very much for coming tonight, and stop reading Keynes.
Hi. Look, I love America, but we're in Britain and we're in serious shit here. Trump's doing well. We're fucked. Brexit may not happen. But more importantly, free speech is under attack. Tommy Robinson will probably likely go to jail again. And if he does, he won't survive. There's many on the right, many here that belong to a party that we dare not even speak of its name for Britain, because we're called fascists and alt-right. What the question is to you guys is, there is a movement across the world that is alt-right, right-wing, whatever you want to call it. Should we not all band together and fight the lunatics on the left, the Hillary Clintons, the Corbyns, etc., 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 because we're under attack here. And free speech is effectively over. And Candace, you started off talking about the BBC. 2 weeks ago, there was a march outside the BBC Manchester by Tommy Robinson's Panodrama. He's going to be in prison very soon because of that. They're fighting back and they're fighting dirty. We need to combine, unite, and fight back.
I mean, I think that's a lot of what, I can't comment on that because I didn't know about the BBC march or anything in regards to that, but I mean, that's what we're doing here. I mean, we really do see America as being the last stand of Western civilization, and that it's really important that the UK and America, with everything that's going on, which seems to be in symmetry, that we do help each other out. And the free speech thing, I will tell you, it terrifies me here. I've read articles, and I cannot believe that there are certain things you aren't allowed to critique without having police officers show up at your door online, that you can't, there should be no discussion or topic that is above intellectual debate. We believe that firmly. Every single topic you should be able to intellectually debate. Now, I don't think you guys are completely messed up here. I am actually a little bit more optimistic. I think that what you're seeing is there's a lot of friction because there's about to be they're losing power. I mean, this is what you're seeing. The BBC knows they're powerless. This journalist that sat across from me knew I had zero respect for her. And it's important that you show up and you continue to do things because the power will always be in the hands of the people. I mean, that's just the truth, right? And if the people are willing to stand up and do things like this and start organizations and jump through all of the hoops that Ali had to jump through to make this happen tonight, right? It makes them nervous because here's the thing. We are on the side of truth, right? That's why they want to shut down speech, because they know that when we get up here, we make so much sense that it just might catch fire, right? They've been making no sense whatsoever, and they have to censor speech so people don't start asking questions about why it makes so very little sense. So I would encourage you not to get discouraged, because I think that that's got to be where America was when Charlie first started Turning Point USA.
Obama, oh my God.
With Obama, people just didn't think there was ever going to be a light, and now we do have Trump, and we have someone that's defending and announcing an executive order for free speech on college campuses, right? It can happen here.
I just want to jump in. When this group launched, it made it very clear that it was against identity politics on the left and on the right. Now, we believe in free markets, free speech, but we will not, I will not associate with anyone or support anyone who engages in the identity politics of the right. Nobody should be judged based on their race, their religion, their gender, or protected characteristics. So if anyone was hoping to find a home at Turning Point with that kind of politics, I'm sorry, this isn't for you. We don't believe in the identity politics of the right.
Totally agree. Totally agree. I mean, we have to say, I'm no fan of Tommy Robinson personally. I think his politics, they're not my politics at all. But when people like Tom Watson say that he should be banned from Twitter, I totally disagree with that. I don't think people on the left or the right, whether that's the far right or the far left, should be banned from speaking. There is a problem with free speech in this country. You've got a point there. But as Chloe says, we do not accept the identity politics on the left or the right. And that means we've got to be really clear about the people that are in this movement. We don't believe, well, I personally don't believe that Tommy Robinson should be part of Turning Point UK, have anything to do with it whatsoever. He is someone who promotes identity politics on the right. So I personally totally disagree with sort of the way that he campaigns. I don't think he should be shut down. I think the solution to hate speech or whatever is more speech. We need more speech, not less speech. Let's not ban these people. Let's debate about the issues and the topics that they're talking about. Let's not shut them down.
And we've seen it work in the States. We've seen voices that can be considered fringe, and you allow more speech and you have more people be discussed, not lock them up because they're in front of a courthouse filming something, or and you guys know the details better than me. If you disagree with someone, that doesn't mean they should go to prison. I mean, that's an unbelievable thing that's happening in this country, which is so sick and so scary. And we have a test case in the United States which works, and we have a marketplace. Well, we have a marketplace with ideas generally. The left is trying to change that. So even though you might disagree with people, fight the death for their right to say it.
Hi guys. My question mainly, I suppose, is related to the as well American guests here. I notice one of the major cultural differences between the States and the UK is that the American people seem to naturally have a more sort of questioning attitude to the role of government than we do, especially in the modern day. And one of the problems we tend to be having right here in London now is the phenomenon of knife crime. And it seems that all the solutions that people are bringing up at the moment are what more can the government do, what more can we spend on what government programs can we have. Whereas I tend to think that a lot of these problems seem to happen in the home and that the solution tends to lie at home, but that doesn't seem to be brought up in public debate. Now, my question to you guys is how can we sort of reclaim that argument and how can we bring it back to personal responsibility and the role of the family? Cheers.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is exactly like the gun debate in America, and we actually always use you guys as an example of like, well, if you take all the guns and they have knives, then what do? Take all the knives, and then what? You still have a person that is responsible, and if people want to do evil things, they will find a means to do evil things. And I agree with you so much, and every time something bad happens in America and they rush to blame the NRA, they rush to blame the gun, they rush to blame everybody but the person who pulled the trigger. You'll see this over and over again. And I think it is exactly to do with the breakdown of the family unit. I mean, these kids are lost in society now. They don't have fathers at home. I think one of the major crises, particularly in the black community, but also in every community in America, is father absence. And seeing the breakdown of the structure of the family unit leads to a breakdown of morals. The moral fibers in society seem to go. And with the birth of the internet, I think it's incredibly hard to be a child or a teenager or an adult growing up, and it makes things a lot easier and things can appeal cooler. But yeah, you're right. The discussion never seems to happen. I try to always have it. I mean, you'll definitely, if you follow me, when terrible things happen in America, I always say the discussion we're never going to hear about is how the families have been destroyed and people don't have that anchor, have that patriarch telling them what's right and what's wrong, and everything else falls apart. And that's purposeful. The left doesn't want it to be about family. They want to always make it seem like this is an opportunity for us to get more power. At the end of the day, they use these opportunities and these tragedies to seize more power for themselves. And it's going to be up to us. It's going to be us, the individuals, the YouTube channels that are popping up to start having a more realistic discussion about where we're at in society, because people do evil things, but it does come down to personal responsibility.
Hi. I just want to make a quick point about Turning Point UK seems to be quite strongly aligning itself to the Conservative Party. I used to be a member of the party, stood as a candidate, but I've long since come to the conclusion that two of the things listed on the board behind you is free speech and limited government. The Conservative Party is actually quite hostile to, especially freedom of speech. We've hit Labour tonight, rightfully so. We've hit Tom Watson for his comments on one of Britain's leading dissident voices at the moment. But what we're missing is that a Conservative cabinet minister is writing to YouTube to have that dissident voice shut down, basically to politically censor him. A year ago today, an American journalist who is very big on YouTube, she found herself put into prison whenever she tried to enter the United Kingdom by a Conservative Home Secretary. A Canadian journalist was actually banned from lifetime entry to the United Kingdom by the same Conservative Home Secretary. The Conservative Party is, at the moment, it is not here for free speech, it is not here for limited governments. It believes in defending the free market with things like price caps. And I'm thinking Turning Point would be better off as a small C rather than Big C aligned movement?
Well, this isn't a Conservative Party front. Like, there are people in the audience who vote Conservative, who agree with them, people that don't. I mean, the important thing about this group is that it isn't aligned. There's already a young Conservative group movement, I think. But the reason this is launched, I think, is because they're not talking about these things. And there needs to be a group talking about these things, because a lot of the young people that I meet that are Conservative do believe in these things. And they come up to me and they say, why is Theresa May so left-wing? And I think she thinks that by moving further to the left, that young people will want to vote Conservative. But I don't think that's correct at all. I think Jeremy Corbyn has a clear vision about how he wants to change the country. And I think young people like change. They want to be part of a change. And so the way to oppose his change message is not, oh, maybe we'll do a little bit of that. It's to have a competing vision. And we want to set out a free market vision for the future of this country. And we really hope that maybe some Conservative MPs might listen. They're not all bad. There are some actual Conservatives in the Conservative Party, but I think the leadership is way too left-wing at the moment. You're right.
Well, let's be really honest about this. The Conservative Party in 2019 is not Conservative. Not Conservative whatsoever. I mean, we've got a Conservative councillor here who says they're not Conservative. Now, that doesn't mean that the Conservative Party can't change. That doesn't mean that, you know, when Theresa May goes, we might have an actual Conservative as leader. I mean, Theresa May is not the Conservative Party. She is Tony Blair 2.0. I think she's even more left-wing than Tony Blair, the Labour Prime Minister for 13 years. I mean, Theresa May's current Conservative Party has undertaken a series of tax rises, not tax cuts. We have the largest tax burden in this country since the 1970s. The largest tax burden since the 1970s. Just think about it. We've got a Conservative Prime Minister who is undertaking more regulation, higher taxes. She's refusing to deliver Brexit. She is not Conservative in the slightest. But that doesn't mean that we can't be part of the Conservative Party and try and change it. That doesn't mean that Turning Point UK shouldn't try and influence Conservative MPs and become Conservative members and say, look, we want to change the leadership. We want to change the cabinet. I mean, we had three Conservative MPs join a new independent group in Parliament a few weeks ago. I think maybe a few more Conservative MPs needs to join them, because at the moment the Conservative Party is not Conservative. Well, exactly.
And I'll tell you a funny anecdote. I was on a panel with a Conservative MP who is now an independent MP, and we were talking about the cost of living. And I said, you know what, if you want to help people with the cost of living, why don't you just take less money away from them? Stop taxing them so much, let them keep more of their wage. And she laughed at me, and then proceeded to say, I'm that funny kind of Conservative, that different kind of Conservative, that believes in higher taxes. What? So, yeah, we're in real trouble with the Conservative Party at the moment.
Just stop voting. That's it. The only way you can get through to them is by stop voting for them so tribally. Stop voting for Labour and Conservative.
Yeah, but then you let Labour in, and Labour would be even worse for the country.
This, the Conservative Party knows in certain parts of the country they will vote for a dead horse if it has a Conservative bloody badge on. That
I would vote for a dead horse.
Yeah, that's the issue we have. Politics at the moment is so desperate.
Okay, we're going to take another question over here. Sorry, we need to go around. This lady's been waiting very patiently.
Hi, I have a question on the effectiveness of the war. So I want to understand how it's being addressed, the immigration issues. So, for example, the overstaying immigrants are overstaying in the USA is like is a majority that's staying over, have their visas expires, that's staying there. So can the war address this issue? Second question is, if the war is so important in, let's say, controlling the drugs trafficking and child sex trafficking, as you have previously mentioned, why are we pushing it now? Why haven't we pushed this earlier? And third question, a bit outside of the context I just mentioned. So Justice Smollett, he could be facing 64 years in jail. He could be facing up to 64 years in jail for something that he basically hasn't murdered anyone. Is this too severe for his punishment? And and should okay? I mean, I would like to understand you to elaborate on that further.
Right. So Jesse Smollett tried to launch a race war. So I think that what they're offering actually does fit. The punishment would fit the crime. What he did was despicable. Obviously, you know what kind of an environment we're facing in America right now. And just so you know, the only hate crimes that are happening in America are happening against people that support the president, where people are getting punched in the face. There's so much violence right now in America that CNN and the BBC will never show you that happens towards Trump supporters. And it's acceptable. I'm so happy that that kid, if you guys are following, the coveting Catholic kid, is suing CNN for $250 million and the Washington Post. But that's separate. So you're talking about the wall, and just so you know, it never got covered, but Barack Obama also said that there was a huge issue at the border and that it was an emergency and that we needed to somehow figure out a way to get it under control, as did Clinton, before him. So the only time you're hearing about the conversation is because Trump is in office and they want to make everything a bigger deal because Trump is in office. We do need the wall. It is a matter of national security. For me, I'm pro-wall because I'm pro-Black America, and the group that gets negatively impacted the most by illegal immigration is Black American men between the ages of 18 and 22 who are forced to compete with them for jobs, lower wages. So if you don't think that Black men should work for below the minimum wage, then you would be pro-wall. One of the worst things ever is trying to make us feel guilty like it's a diversity problem. We don't have a diversity problem when over 50% of the immigrants that we take in are coming in from Mexico. That's not making America diverse, that's making America Mexico, okay? I'd like to see a policy, a merit-based system where we go over to Africa maybe. We only take 2 to 4% of immigrants from Africa every year. You want to see some diversity? Let's go to Africa, a merit-based system of people that want to be doctors and lawyers and are staying in school and will never have an opportunity to come into our country because people are geographically predisposed and want to hop over the border and disrespect our legislation. I am the most pro-wall woman that you will find in America. And then to your earlier point of you asking, you asked is it a problem, or what was your first question? The overstaying the visa. Yeah, obviously the wall is not going to help for people that are already in America. I mean, I think we understand that. But I would be very happy if we found out a way to get them all back into their country. Trump he's actually a little more lenient. He offered them a deal and the DACA deal and was going to say, okay, well, you guys are already here. We're going to help you. I'm even against that. I think if you disrespect our law, you need to get sent home, period.
Okay, we're gonna take one more question. And then we're going to wrap it up. Thanks, folks.
So my question is for Candace and Charlie. Someone already asked the question I originally intended to ask, so instead I'll ask another one. What is the situation with Kanye? I don't see Charlie wearing the new Yeezy 700s. What's your current relationship with him?
He has them still. Look, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Kanye needed a break from politics. You can't do politics halfway. Kanye's a great person. I'm like, you're never going to hear me ever utter a bad word about him. He moved the conversation further in Black America with a couple of tweets, and it's been moved in the last 60 years. The amount of courage that it takes to be a Black man in Hollywood, to put on a MAGA hat, to go to the White House, to hug the president, to do a pro-Trump celebratory performance on Saturday Night Live, the most liberal-infested show that we have on TV, okay? He has done enough. People want more. I don't get it. What more do you want from Kanye? He has a family. He has a baby on the way. And the amount of threats and the volatility that the media that launched towards him because he said he loved the president, it was great. Because now when I go around and I talk to Black America about what I call social lynchings, which is what happens to Black people, the media lynches us. It's an updated technique. They can no longer hang us from trees, but they did to Clarence Thomas. They did it to Dr. Ben Carson. When Dr. Condoleezza Rice was working under Bush, they did it to her. The media will literally hang us out to dry and try to destroy our lives simply for being Black, for being conservative, and having the audacity to think for ourselves. What Kanye West went through was so public and so painful, and the second he said, never mind, I'm done with politics, they left him alone. They no longer called him crazy. It is the greatest example of how much the media lies, how vicious the media is, and how pointedly racist the leftist media is against Black Americans. So we honor Kanye, and if he wants to come back into politics, he's still pro-Trump. He said Trump all day. He will always have a platform with us, and he will always be considered a friend. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, so thanks, guys. That was a terrific answer from everyone. Thanks to all the panelists. There's going to be some time for Charlie and Candace to get pictures with you guys. Ollie, are we doing that to the left or over there? Okay, we're over there. Sorry, to the right. Of course, to the right. And I think it's been an enormous success for the inaugural live event of Turning Point UK. I will say this, that if you want to support us, we are not funded by dark money. And the Guardian journalist who asked that ducked out after my answer, so I guess he didn't feel very comfortable. So if you do want to get involved, please just come and speak to somebody either on the panel or myself or Ollie, who's at the back of the room. And we need as much help as we can get. We've got Nottingham on Tuesday and then Brighton on Wednesday, which is going to be the fun one because Antifa are all over it. So good. Thanks very much, guys. Let's give it a big round of applause for our panelists.